touching it.
Well, they didn't agree initially. So the first year that I mean, I can only explain what happened in the Assembly and I can help.
And I am speaking about the 2010 version.
I can conjecture what happened in the Senate, but this was initially put in place after the American Civic Association tragedy. Not that this would have helped that situation, nor would this bill have helped what happened in Arizona either. We're just trying to start to look at the whole mental health system and then think, okay, what can we start with that we can actually get accomplished? The lobbying interests for gun owners are very, very strong, and they are very present at the state capitol. And those of us who represent upstate have typically sided with these interests because many of the bills that are written for gun control really go too far and hurt legitimate gun owners and sportsmen. This bill, when I first passed it in the Assembly, got on their radar, and lots of people received memos in opposition to this bill because they didn't fully understand it. And it was also added into a package of gun bills that the Assembly passes on an annual basis, and that sent up a lot of red flags. The following year, we took it out of that package and put it into a package of bills having to do with crime victims. I think the state Senate hadn't quite caught up with the fact that I had been working to help the gun owners and the gun lobbyists become more comfortable with this bill. And I think the Democrats who were controlling the state Senate at the time really had their hands full, as you're probably well aware, with a lot of bad behavior and unfortunate political, unfortunate drama.
Distractions.
Distractions over there. So all I can say is that I've had interest already from the Senate in this bill, and perhaps Senator Libous may be in a position to either introduce the bill, or as the floor leader of the state Senate, he will be in charge of what bills come out for a vote. So we have a better shot, I think, of having him get out there.
See, we were hoping we would get him to say that and explain that very same thing.
I will ask him to sponsor the bill, and I'm optimistic that he will, or he will know who is best in the Senate to take it up.
No problem. That's a little trouble. 2010, we had the census come out. And the census showed a continuation of a trend that's been going on for 50 years.
Population loss.
We're losing people throughout the state of New York. And along with that, we're losing representation in Washington. This is a problem for everyone in the state. It does us no good. And it means that, quite honestly, for politicians on every party for decades now, it means we're doing the wrong thing. The wrong thing, not so much, that's not exactly the right way to word that. Maybe you word that, I'm sorry. It's not effective. What has been done is not effective.
Absolutely true.
Looking at 2011, do you see things that you plan to introduce or want to support or address that could possibly help to start to reverse that process?
I have been one of a group of moderates in the State Assembly. Unfortunately, during the last election, we lost 6 moderate upstate Democrats in the Assembly. And keeping in mind, we have 150 members in the Assembly now, 100 Democrats, give or take. We're still one race is undecided, 50 Republicans. Within that 100, we lost 6 moderate Democrats, a voice for the type of change I think that we need to see happen in New York State, a voice for actually addressing some of our problems, taking on some of the pain so that we can get into some long-term gain. So the simple answer at the moment is I want to give this governor a chance to put out his platform, for him to put out his budget, try to be helpful and supportive, because I think he's on the right track when he says the chickens have come home to roost. When I've sat in the group and I've seen the tricks, the financial tricks, the one-shot arrangements, the accounting maneuvers, the draining of accounts. I mean, I've watched all this out of the desperation that has been expressed over our ballooning deficits.
Right.
In the meantime, the big problems aren't being addressed. And the big problems are primarily seen in upstate New York. Of course, during the collapse of Wall Street, my colleagues from downstate got to see in a big-time hurry what happened when they had thousands of jobs lost in the financial sector. But we still haven't recovered from the collapse that we've experienced over the last 10 or 15 years. So I want to give the governor a chance and back him up where I can, and to make sure that the southern tier gets heard in the process. The tension, of course, is going to be the fact that the public has a certain expectation of a level of service. That's going to collide. It's going to collide with what we can actually afford to pay for. And our failure to really connect those two together has created an unfriendly business climate and an unsustainable amount of government that we have to address.
Well, I agree completely. And
but I still, as a Democrat.
Yes. Oh, I'm not being partisan about this.
No, I just wanted to say, because people always say, geez, he sounds kind of a Republican. So, but as a Democrat, I still hold to a whole host of, social ideals that we can focus on to help make our state more just and right for people who have difficult circumstances, for those who are mentally ill, who are at risk of violence, those who are looking for affordable child care for their children so they can go to work. So we've got to balance a lot of things within our means. And if we can do that, perhaps we can get the state back on good financial footing. But this is not going to be an easy process because we have taken so long for people to get with
50
the
years.
program.
50 years according to the census, so I agree with you.
But we're stuck with the census issue now for 10 years.
Yes.
We're going to lose 2 seats in Congress.
Yes.
They've gone to Texas or Florida. And once we look at the state legislature, there may be a shift downstate of some seats as well. So each one of us has to have a certain number of people, a certain number of residents, constituents. And so if it's 150,000, for example, or 125,000, you may have to go farther to find those numbers of people. And we might wind up losing even more influence to our downstate colleagues.
It's going to be very interesting, especially when we have to do the redistricting, which is a whole other issue with some of the districts. And
yes, but fortunately, people are paying attention to that one. Most people never connected that together. The census and the redistricting, and it just sort of happened. But a lot of people are looking at that. Many of us had to sign pledges, or were asked to sign pledges, and did so.
Mayor Koch's New York Uprising.
Right. I've been sponsoring that bill since I got to the legislature for neutral redistricting, to attempt to do it as fair as possible.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we've spoken about before, which is also a major issue, is the hydrofracking and natural gas bill.
Okay.
That was a big issue then, it still is today.
Sure.
One of the key things that we had said last, we had discussed, was the commissioner of the DEC would be very critical into the future of what's going to happen with hydrofracking in New York.
Right.
Well, we know who the commissioner is now. It's Joe Martens.
Martens.
I'm sorry. And Mr. Martens is, well, for some people, controversial.
Well, we don't know yet. He's gone from his role as an environmental advocate, because he was the head of the Open Space Institute.
Yes, he
was. Now he's in the
12
regulatory
years.
position. So when people make that shift, they have to understand they've completely changed roles.
They should.
Now, I have not met him yet.
Yes, neither have I.
And we're going to be bringing him, hopefully, into our Environmental Conservation Committee so we can get a sense of how he's making this transition. It's not unlike what has happened with me. Before I got elected, I was very involved in the environmental community. I was an environmental advocate. I spent a lot of time organizing around various causes. I was very involved in the trichloroethylene endicott situation. But when I got into this position, I have to represent the whole group of people who I serve. And I happen to represent a lot of family members and homeowners in Vestal who are deeply in the middle of this issue from a landowner standpoint. And I also represent a lot of other people in the middle who are just hoping we're doing the right thing, and a lot of environmentalists. My natural inclination would have been to be one of the protesters as part of the environmental group. But now that I'm in this position of responsibility, I have to be open-minded and fair and balanced in the approach. So I'm hoping this fellow, Martens, will be the same way. And I get the signals, at least, that he's going to be that way. His big challenge right now is the fact that he's got a skeleton crew left at DEC, not just in the natural resources, natural gas drilling area, but across the board. I mean, we're having a hard time just doing basic functions in DEC. They've lost more than 25% of their staff just in the last few years alone. It's very tough.